What's going on, everyone? Wait. This is a black and white movie. We have to do this review in black and white. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of the new Netflix original movie, Mank. This movie, of course, is directed by David Fincher and written by his father, Jack Fincher. Now, before we begin, as always, if you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button and comment below on any video to watch, including this one. So this movie, Mank, is based off the true story of a guy named Herman Mankiewicz, who, of course, is played by Gary Oldman. Herman Mankiewicz is very well known, or at least he in most circles is very well known for, of course, writing Citizen Kane, which is considered like one of the greatest movies of all time. But he is a guy that had alcoholism problems. He is a guy that became very disillusioned from Hollywood, and it almost ruined his career when he started writing Citizen Kane. Everybody tried to tell him, don't write this movie, do something that will not piss off William Randolph Hearst, who's one of the biggest media moguls of all time. And he did it anyways, and not only did he win an Oscar, but he became well respected for taking on David versus Goliath. He's David, and the Goliath was William Randolph Hearst. And of course, it made William Randolph Hearst very mad. It made a good friend of Marion Davies, who of course is played by Amanda Seyfried, very mad. But in essence, this movie is a kind of, it takes place between 1930 and 1942, 43, somewhere around there. And it just shows a guy who was in the Hollywood system that was well respected in the Hollywood system, but he was a very outspoken individual. And it shows him starting to kind of be disillusioned by people like Louis B. Mayer, who's played by Arliss Howard, or William Randolph Hearst, played by Charlie Dance. It starts to see his greed than it does about you as an individual. And there are a lot of scenes in this movie that really show that to effect, between pay cuts because of the Great Depression to the whole Upton Sinclair thing when he lost to the certain individual because of the whole money situation, because Upton Sinclair was actually an individual who fought for the rights of the lower man, but because of the higher amounts of money that was being thrown to the Republican guy, the Republican guy lost. So there's a whole disillusion effect about, you know, how they kind of scam the election the way they did and stuff like that. But it's a movie that truly kind of is prescient in today's society with the whole political aspect. But it's a movie that really truly kind of shows you what it was like in that society in that particular time frame of 1930 to 1943. Eventually, when Citizen Kane came out, and kind of opened everything wide open. So with all that out of the way, with the synopsis out of the way, this is a film that I've been pretty much looking forward to since I first heard about it, which is, you know, sometime early this year. David Fincher, when he does movies, they're movies that you want to watch out for because he has a very particular stance and particular style to how he films movies and how he directs movies. But what made this movie really fascinating and unique is, like I'm doing here, not only was it shot in black and white, but it was made to look like it could have been filmed in the 40s with its lighting and its, you know, grays and blacks and whites, how the costuming is portrayed, how, you know, there are cigarette burns. There's actually, the funny part is that you look at Fight Club, like that whole sequence that you talk about cigarette burns, is right before the film changes reels, when, you know, each film has like several reels attached to it, which, you know, runs through the projector. There's a burn mark that pops up, and before the reel changes, that's when you know that the films are spliced together and stuff like that. So like in Fight Club, that's actually in this movie, which is really awesome. I really love that aspect. It really made the movie feel like it could have been a real projected film. But it's a movie that is really kind of on point with what it's trying to do, which make you feel like you're watching a movie in the 40s, making you feel like, in a sense, it's like Citizen Kane in a lot of aspects with its way it cuts, way it portrays the past and present, the way it kind of intersperses all that together, and the way it makes the characters talk. You know, the character who's played Marion Davies, who's played by Amanda Seyfried, the way she acts, the way she talks is very similar to what Cate Blanchett did in The Aviator, or kind of like what the characters do in Ed Wood. So if you put like Ed Wood in this movie and The Aviator together, it'd be a great, you know, trilogy of movies to watch. But it's a movie that really shows you the bad nature of Hollywood. It really does. So with that said, I was really excited to see this movie because I like movies that take chances, that do different things, that go to the 11th degree or nth degree to make a movie truly unique. So this movie got a lot of buzz. It's been getting a lot of buzz, and, you know, for good rights. And what makes it also unique is, of course, Jack Fincher, who is David Fincher's father, unfortunately passed away quite a while ago. So this is a movie that's been kind of on the back burner for quite a while because no studio wants to make a movie like this because it's not going to be a big grosser. It's not going to be a movie that's going to be understood by the audience, and I'll get that in a second. And it's a movie that is truly inside baseball when it comes to Hollywood. So it's a movie that, you know, Paramount or Warner Brothers, whoever got a hold of the script, was afraid to make, and it's truly understandable why, but it doesn't make any sense why this movie didn't get made or took so long for it to get made. And because Netflix is being who they are and giving these gigantic budgets to these film, you know, directors, it makes a lot of sense why David Fincher went to Netflix to make this movie. He probably could have gone to Amazon or something like that. And here we are in 2020, and we have our film Mank. And I'm going to be 100% honest. This movie is incredible. To me personally, it's an amazing piece of work, but it's going to be a movie that I don't think is going to win Best Picture. There's a lot of big hitters like One Night in Miami or Nomadland or The Trial of Chicago 7. This is a movie that is going to be looked on upon its cinematography, its Best Supporting Actress with Amanda Seyfried, possibly Gary Oldman. There's a lot of big, acting Oscar people right now, and it's going to be a movie that's going to really confuse the audience because it doesn't allow itself to set place in one particular time. So you'll go back to the past for a few minutes, you'll go back to the future for a few minutes, or present day, back to the past, back to the future, back to the past, back to the future, back to the past, back to the future. And the only way you can kind of keep up with what's going on is they do a really cool thing with the script thing, where if you've ever read a script, in order to see a scene, you'll be like interior, blah, 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 scene, day, night, but it says flashback. So, you know, you're going back to like 1934, 1930. So you're always kind of kept on pace with that. But it gets to points where it gets so convoluted sometimes where it'll just cut back like quickly or cut, you know, forward quickly that you start to get really confused. I mean, it's just one of the unfortunate things of what the storytelling and what David Fincher and his father were trying to do. It's just not going to be a movie for everyone in that aspect. So there's going to be a lot of people that just don't understand what this movie is, what it's trying to do. A lot of these characters go in and out really quickly, and it can be kind of a problem. So that is this kind of major flaw, and why I don't think it's going to win Best Picture is just for the simple incidences. And so with that said, this movie, honestly, to me, is an experience. It's an incredible piece of work. And the reason for that is not only David Fincher's direction, which is, he's an A-list talent on his own. You can see it throughout the entire film. You can see it from the shot blocking, the way the camera moves, the way the world works. David Fincher is just in a league of his own a lot of times. But it all kind of boils down to cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, who is kind of coming out into his first real big production and is going to win an Oscar. If he doesn't win an Oscar for this movie, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed, because this is a movie that is so different and so gorgeous to watch. The way the light shines down into a very 1940s feel, the way it's blocked, the way, you know, the grays and whites and blacks. You know, there's a very funny thing at the very beginning of this movie where it says, you know, cinematographer, and it says shot in high definition range, and it's just HDR, which I thought was a really funny joke. But it really feels like, you know, a Wizard of Oz or Citizen Kane, where it's just a very gorgeous, very pop in your face style movie. You know, when the costumes pop, they pop. The way the characters just kind of move through the scenes. It's a very gorgeous looking movie, and it really shows the talent that some directors or some cinematographers have. And Eric Messerschmidt is just, he's a revelation in his, you know, showing of this movie. So it's pretty amazing to watch, and it's a pretty incredible piece of cinematography that if I've ever seen one, or director of photography, if you want to put it in that respect. So I have to give a shout out to Eric Messerschmidt. It's an amazing looking film, and just when they're in the study, or when they're in the dining room and the fire's popping, or, you know, when like I said, there's a really cool thing with the cigarette burns, which is really clever, you know, from Fight Club and stuff like that. And it's just an incredible looking movie. So, and then we'll go into, of course, the music, which is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross again, which have become staples for, of course, David Fincher. It's another kind of different score than what you know Trent Reznor for doing, or Atticus Ross for doing. They really kind of shown that they can go to any depths and go to any kind of genre that they want, and they can just knock it out of the park. I haven't seen Soul yet, but I heard that's like another great score that they did. But it's a really incredible, really fits the tone of the movie, really fits the idea and the kind of a cool nature of this world. You know, when it goes dark, the dark kind of tones of the instruments. When it, you know, becomes lighthearted, you see the lightness of the, you know, the instruments, stuff like that. They use a lot of instruments that you can only use in the 30s and 40s. So it really once again shows you that Trent Reznor has really kind of uprooted himself from Nine Inch Nails, and same thing with Atticus Ross, kind of being a pairing now, and just kind of gone into a different atmosphere or stratosphere, whatever you want to call it. So it's a pretty amazing score. I hope it gets nominated. I hope they get nominated for both films, even though I haven't seen Soul yet. So, and we'll really get into the last piece, which is the cast. Gary Oldman is always great. He's great in this. He's not the greatest part about this movie because the characters are all kind of evened out. But I think the standout outside of like maybe Arliss Howard or Tuppence Middleton is Amanda Seyfried, who is on the trajectory to win an Oscar for this character. She's in it not that much, but when she's in it, she's magnetic. She's embracing the performance of Marion Davies. And she just gives an incredibly nuanced performance that makes her truly stand out as a great Hollywood actress. And it's just an amazing thing to watch. An amazing thing when she kind of, has her moments with Mankiewicz, or Mank as they call him. Her kind of subtlety, her kind of when she tries to talk down Mankiewicz from writing the Citizen Kane script, because she is the daughter, of course, of William Randolph Hearst. And just to see her kind of struggle through the Hollywood system, and just see her struggle, trying to be the heiress of, somebody very famous and very rich, but trying to do her own thing. So she gives a very Oscar-worthy performance, a very commanding performance. And I wouldn't mind seeing her win the supporting actress Oscar, but it's a very stacked year for film. It's really crazy with a pandemic going on, but there's a lot of great performances this year, and some I haven't even seen yet. So, but as I leave it with that, this is a movie that is going to be interesting to watch what people truly think about it. It's going to be a movie that you're really going to be on board with, or you're really not going to be on board with, just because of how the scripting and how the story and the editing, because the editing can be a little choppy in a lot of places. But I think this movie really hones in on what is truly disturbing about Hollywood, and what is truly disturbing about people who try to make a difference and them getting thrown under the bus. Like I said, it's very prescient, especially with the political moments in this movie. And it is a movie that is really powerful and shows how great of a director David Fincher is with the cast and crew that he has. So, but that's it. That's gonna be my take on this movie, Mank. Merry Christmas, everyone, and happy holidays to everyone who doesn't celebrate Christmas. Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of the new Pixar movie, Soul. This movie, of course, is directed by Pete Docter as well as Kent Powers. Now, before we begin, if you like my channel, of course, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button and comment below any video that you watch, including this one. So this story, Soul, is about a character named Joe, who, of course, is played by Jamie Foxx. And Joe is a guy who has a lifelong passion for music and jazz. He's put everything of his heart and he feels like his soul into this music, but has never really gotten anywhere. He's a guy who's now like in a middle school teaching job, which he teaches kids how to play music. And in the process, he falls down a manhole cover, which is, it's in the trailer. And he finds himself as a soul. We see basically throughout most of the entire movie him as like in this kind of earthly realm where it's very Pixar and like in nature, with this like obtuse objects and stuff like that. And he meets a character named 22, who is played by Tina Fey. And what Tina Fey's 22 is basically about is she's a free-willing spirit. She doesn't really have a purpose. She's been stuck in this kind of limbo for like thousands of years, because this world allows these souls, these newborn souls, to find their purpose so they can jump to Earth and get into new bodies. And it's basically about this, how Joe's character is going to find himself getting back to Earth instead of going to the great beyond, and how he has to teach 22 about the purposes of life, about what makes a human being, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much like the gist of the story without kind of spoiling too much about it. And so, as we're mostly aware, it's Christmas Day. Soul has come out on Disney Plus, and this is a movie that was supposed to come out in the middle of the summer. It was a movie that was pushed many, many times because of the pandemic. And it's a movie that I've been looking forward to. It was like number 4 on my most anticipated list of the year. And it's a movie that, once again, is directed by Pete Docter, who has directed stuff like Monsters, Inc., Up, and of course the very famous, well-respected Inside Out. And what Pete Docter is very known for doing is taking the human condition, taking the human experience, the kind of whole heart, soul, and mind, and kind of throwing it out there and giving it kind of an Art Deco type look, like especially in this movie or Inside Out, where she truly like deconstructs what makes us human. And it's similar in like Monsters Inc., but a lot of times like in Up and stuff like that, they're a little bit different. But between this and Inside Out, he's really just delving into a metaphysical mind of the human condition, and it's made Pete Doctor on a whole different level of creativemanship that is not really relevant to a lot of the Pixar movies that come out. You know, we have the fun excitement like Brad Bird's movies with Incredibles, and you know we have all these like Toy Stories and so on and so forth. But I think Pete Doctor is truly working on a different level here, and with the help of Kent Powers, who actually wrote One Night in Miami, which is one of my favorite movies of the year. What they've crafted here is a very just kind of powerful emotional story about one guy's realization about what is his purpose and who he is and how he has affected the world around him. And I really truly thought this movie was a magical experience. It's not nearly as good as Inside Out. I think Inside Out just works on a whole different level than any film in Pixar's oeuvre outside of like Toy Story and stuff like that. But this movie it has so much heart, it has so much emotion, it has so much resonance to what we believe and who we are, that it just feels like a truly unique experience that only Pixar seems to know how to do a lot of times. You know, will this make my top 10? I have no idea because the top 10 is ridiculous, but it's a movie that, with the help of the kind of, you know, human experience about one guy's passion, you know, that Kent Powers has brought to the table. Because if you look at something like One Night in Miami, his experience of writing, his kind of passion out there of human character development is really a powerful thing. I think what he is doing is on a whole different level of, you know, a lot of writers out there, and he does a really nice job. And it's a very interesting experience to watch a movie like this and just really feel so much emotion, to start welling up with tears, because you're watching something so powerful, I guess you could say. So it's a really well done movie. I think where it does struggle is at the beginning, up to about 30 minutes into the movie, because it moves so quickly and gets you to the plot narrative so fast that you're almost like in a whirlwind of like, you're like going, and you kind of can't keep up for a while. And then it starts slowing down when you meet 22, and when Joe takes on 22 as a kind of a mentor and stuff like that. And I think that's when the movie starts truly working. And I think that when the movie starts truly becoming special is when you're actually able to slow down and you start to get the character development, the human emotion, the human resonance. And it's a movie that really truly starts to work right there. But it just takes that 30 minutes to kind of slow down to finally get to that point. But it's a remarkable movie. It really is. It's another win for Pixar. It's a beautiful movie to look at. I mean, there are some scenes in this movie that almost feel photorealistic with the characters. When they go into the like earthly realm, as I want to call it, or the kind of great beyond, it's like abstract art. And you know, the little new souls are like these little children things that are running around like craziness, and the leaders are kind of like Picasso paintings in a lot of ways. It's really fascinating to watch. And like I said, you know, the other souls are just these big, they're just little blue forms of their original selves. But it's just, it's really kind of fun, and it's really kind of unique. And it's what Pixar is known for doing when they truly know how to make themselves on a different level than everyone else, is they make these really cool, unique ideas. And it's the same thing with like Inside Out, like I go back to, where the different characters, the different emotions are very uniquely crafted and whatnot. So it's a really cool thing to watch when you get to that point. And like I said, when you're on Earth, it's a really cool thing. So, but the last thing I always like to talk about is the music. And one of my favorite pairing duos in the last few years has, of course, been Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Trent Reznor has been one of my favorite musicians as long as I've been alive, but what Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor have done since they've come into the kind of landscape of composing music has completely revolutionized and reformed who I thought Trent Reznor was as a musician. The music and the different styles they go for. I mean, you look at stuff like Mank, and you look at stuff like Soul, and how completely different it is to what you know and understand about who they are and what they're known for. It's incredible to listen to. I mean, you listen to this soundtrack, you listen to the music that is playing, it's very jazzy, It's very heavy in this, the piano. It's very upbeat. It's unlike anything I've ever heard from Trent Reznor before. And I said the same thing with Mank. It's just they're working on a whole different level. They're some of the most amazing composers working today. And this is coming from Trent Reznor, who I've loved, like I said, since I was a kid. But it's incredible to watch. It's going to be interesting to see if they get a dual nomination for Oscars this year. But it's one of the best soundtracks I've heard this year. It's one of the most engaging, one of the most like thought provoking, and one of the most interesting kind of cool soundtracks I've heard in quite a while. It's really good. It really is. So I give a lot of credit to Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor because it's not something I was expecting from them. So. But with that said, Soul is a movie that I highly recommend. Like I said, it's now on Disney Plus, so 100 million people have Disney Plus, so definitely check it out when you get a chance. It's just a great movie. But thank you so much for watching my review of Soul. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of News of the World, the newest film from director Paul Greengrass. Now, before we begin, hey, if you like this channel, awesome, hit that subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video you watch, including this one. So this movie, News of the World, is about a character named Captain Kidd, who of course is played by Tom Hanks. He's an individual who, after the Civil War, and after the incidents that happened, with him and his kind of experience of that war, he basically goes around to cities and towns and so on and so forth, and basically reads the news as entertainment for the folks that live in those towns. But they also pay him, so it's like a job to him. It's something that he makes money, that he can continue going town to town to town, to the point where he wants to get to Galveston and show the world and stuff like that. And basically on his journeys to Galveston and San Antonio, where he's from, he comes across this young girl who was involved in the incident where the people that were transporting her were basically murdered and so on and so forth. And she is this young girl who doesn't speak any English. She's played by Helena Zingle, by the way, named Joanna. And she and Tom Hanks go on this journey, which is treacherous and dangerous and so on and so forth, to get her back to the rest of her family that was not murdered by the people that took her. And it basically is a simple story of these two connecting. It's a very lone wolf and cub type story, and it's a story about how two individuals from two different kind of societal aspects start to form a bond, and how that bond becomes kind of a clad in stone type of situation. And so with like the synopsis kind of out of the way, this is a film I was highly anticipated for quite a while. Actually, I think I put this as like number 10 of my most anticipated films of 2020. And it was a film that I was looking forward to for the simple fact that you had Paul Greengrass, who's an amazing director, Tom Hanks, who's an amazing actor, basically reteaming after Captain Phillips was an amazing movie with an insanely like amazing performance by Tom Hanks. And it was just one of those movies that I had no idea what the real true story was, because it was either going to be a Texas Ranger or a Civil War vet. And I was just kind of looking forward to it. I thought it was gonna be a good film, and then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. This, it's a Western. It's set in like the frontier, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm not that genre. It's not my cup of tea. It doesn't mean it's a bad genre. Like people love Unforgiven and Tombstone and stuff like that. But it's just not a film that, from the look of it, it looked like a very bland and very kind of boring and coarse film. It didn't really have much going for it. But I wanted to see it because I was still anticipating it, and after going to the theater where it was only playing in the theater, which unfortunately a lot of people won't be able to see it for that reason because of the pandemic, I can safely say that this film is really highly entertaining. It's not one of my favorite films. It's not in the top 10 of the year, but the performances of Tom Hanks, the performances of Helena Zingle are dynamic. They're electric. There's a rawness and a very, like I said, lone wolf and cub performance there. It's a very just kind of fun dynamic of people who are from two different subsets, like I said, of the cultural aspect. And once again, it just proves that Tom Hanks and Paul Greengrass have developed this kind of directorial relationship that truly works. And, Tom Hanks works well with everyone, but there's something kind of raw and emotional when these two get together that kind of displays on the screen. You feel for this guy who has gone through so much in the war, and you can just kind of see the weariness of his eyes and stuff like that. And then you get with this young girl who starts coming into his life, and you just start to see the transformation. You start seeing the protectiveness. You start seeing the fatherly figure come out of him, and when they go through the trials and tribulations of trying to cross this frontier, which is very, very dangerous, it's wonderfully set up and wonderfully paced, and just it's a fun, entertaining story that is perfectly fit for something like Paul Greengrass and Tom Hanks. It's not as good as Captain Phillips, which is a decade defining movie for them too, but it's a movie that I really, really enjoyed. It has great set pieces. The frontier land is the stuff that's shot is very, very beautiful to look at, and the way Paul Greengrass shoots with like the handheld cameras and stuff like that is in full display here. It really feels like a very intimate and in your face type moment, and it's just a movie that you can sit back, you can enjoy, watching with, your wife or husband or the relatives and so on and so forth, and just get something kind of fun and kind of, even though it's been done before, you get something fun and unique, and you get Tom Hanks and Paul Greengrass back, which is really like, it's my main reason for really liking this movie was them too. But Helena Zengel in this movie is fantastic. She, like I said, this is one of her first real roles in as an actress. She's only like 9 or 10 years old, and she's fantastic in this movie. So the other thing I'll leave off with is James Newton Howard is the composer of this movie, and it's very traditional, and it's melodies and motifs and stuff like that, but it's well done, and it's well well scored and stuff like that. So, but there are other characters in this movie that pop up, people that you'll recognize and so on and so forth. But this is truly a 2-character set piece type movie where you're watching a very intimate story of 2 individuals who are very different, who start to form together a bonding relationship. And